I want to apologize to all of you, for actually not being there. You know how much I would prefer to be there. But we made a family decision to hit the road. We have a fair amount to drive. It's Tuesday afternoon, and I'm still at school at 5 doing this for you guys. So I hope you take it seriously. And if you're on vacation when you get this, then you're doing the same thing I am. So we talked about this screen in light of the idea of what parties are doing in terms of the three things: the government, organization, and the electorate. And so, for example, that was one thing you put on your chart. Or if you haven't, stop this and then put it on there, i.e. the party organization controls the party and government by telling the party and government, if you want to be a chair of a party, you need to vote the right way with the party, you need to raise money and get party members elected, etc. Also, if you're in the minority party in the House today, for example, the Democrats, their bills have a very tough time getting out of committee. Also, the party is going to reach the electorate better because they're going to give swing district candidates money to help them get elected. We also talked about that in the guise of the fact that the swing states in 2004 were the only ones where we saw an uptick in voter turnout. We didn't see it in the states that had nothing. So what we're doing here today, I just want to remind you of everything you're taking notes on, but kind of keep it, and we're going to go back to this, keep it in mind of what we're talking, the party and the three parts and how they work. So your homework today is going to be the first half of Chapter 9. That's the chapter on campaigns and elections. Campaigns and elections, Chapter 9. So let's talk about this in terms of some words you need to understand. First of all, we're talking about elections. Second of all, the electorate are you and I, the people who are actually voting. The second term is mandate. I mandate that you guys do the first half of Chapter 9 for homework due on Tuesday, the regular outline with pictures and everything. An electoral mandate is when a person coming into office says that they are going to do something. When Barack Obama came in, his mandate was to get us out of Iraq. The Republicans today are upset because they say they have the mandate, and the mandate includes more compromise, and so they're very upset with him with the executive order that he just issued on immigration. They say Obama doesn't have the mandate. Now, in terms of election, there are two ways to do it. Candidates use a prospective judgment. They say, if elected, I'm going to do these three things. If elected, I'm going to create more jobs, I'm going to get us out of Iraq, I'm going to create immigration reform. Political scientists generally say that it goes in the past tense, that if the economy is going well, if people have jobs, then the current party will stay in office within the guise of the Electoral College, and we're talking for presidents, or even within the Senate race. So the perception out there in Virginia is that while the economy is better, it's not good enough. And so that's the retrospective judgment, is that's why Mark Warner, Democrat, had a hard time getting reelected this time. This is why Barack Obama easily won against John McCain in 2008, because the economy was tanking and we were up to 9 or 10% unemployment back then. And so John McCain, even though it wasn't his fault because he was not a president, just one member of the Senate, had nothing, it didn't matter. It was the party of George Bush that mattered. So that's the first term, first couple terms. Second thing, and we're going to do this in class, we're going to have a lot of fun. There's a site called the Living Room Candidate, and candidates go generally on there, to say it again, their prospective judgment about what they are going to do in the election. And so one favorite one is this one.
I for president, you like I like I. Everybody likes I for president. Hang out the banner, keep the drum, we'll take I.
And so we're going to go through some, but believe it or not, that's a presidential campaign, and it looks like something you guys could do 10 times better with the equipment that you now have. But look at the date, that's 11 years before I was born, 1952. Okay, so elections. Elections have different types. General elections are the November elections, when we select between the Democrat and the Republicans. Remember, generally it's between two parties because of Duverger's law, N+1. N is the number we're electing, one president, one senator, one House member, plus one equals two parties. So primary elections and caucuses are two of the ways that parties select people. So a primary election can have all those things below: a closed primary, open primary, a closed or open primary. A closed primary means you must be a registered Republican or Democrat or whatever party to vote. If it's closed and you're not registered in those parties, you are barred from voting. We do not have closed primaries in Virginia because we have no party registration. An open primary means exactly what you see on the screen. This is where you're taking notes and you're stopping the screen. And this is where you can vote in the other person's, in your own party or the other person's party primary. A primary, I forgot to say, is when you go to the poll, the normal place, the normal time in Virginia, it's 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. And you have all your normal precincts. Like we have two precincts, Kingstown and the Villages in Hayfield Secondary, and across the street we have Hayfield Farms. Crossover voting, it just refers to a primary where someone can vote in a party that's not theirs. Blanket primary, you can see it again, is you can vote for one Republican, one Democrat, or whatever. A blanket could include a crossover, and all of them are open primaries as opposed to closed. So stop this video, and look at it and make sure you have it down. Fair game for a quiz next class. Runoff primary is what we have in Louisiana today. Mary Landrieu is the Democrat who did not get 50%, nor did her Republican opponent. So in early December, they're going to have a runoff. If one candidate then gets 50% or more, 50.1%, that person will be the next U.S. Senator. Probably in that case will be Republican. Very few states have runoffs. Most states, it's the plurality. Plurality means the most votes, not the majority of votes. Bill Clinton never had a majority of popular votes when he won both elections for president because Ross Perot ran. We talked about that last time. He had a plurality, meaning he had 43%, I think, in 1992. That's the most vote of all three candidates. So the first way we're talking about a party selects is a primary. The second one is a caucus. People who go to caucuses go to fewer locations at less of a time. Usually it's 2 or 3 hours rather than the one I just told you, 13 hours. And they're usually more liberal for Democrats and more conservative for Republicans, and they're more upper class and they're more active. And these are the people who will vote for a Republican no matter what, a Democrat no matter what. These are the party activists. And so this is what you choose if you want to control the voting. So back with the party machine, the late 1800s, the Boss Tweedy things that you guys know about, caucuses are what they're going to choose more of because the party leaders can control it. When you go to a primary, you're extending the vote to a lot of people who really don't care who the party leaders are. And so other than sending them campaign literature, you can't control it. So that's primary, caucus, and then I said H already, that's in November, that's a general election. 3 terms that you learned last year for U.S. history are initiative and referendum and recall and referendum. These are at the state level, but it's important enough to go over. Initiative is when the state allows someone to get a certain number of signatures to get an idea on the ballot. Marijuana is one that was on a lot of states just a couple weeks ago. So they had to get signatures, then it got on the ballot, and then the idea, in a sense, became the candidate, and people would run for ads and against ads, and that's called a referendum when you vote on it. It's when the people decide rather than the legislature. Recall is when you want to recall a state or local official, and you get same thing as initiative, the same number of signatures and whatnot to get on a state ballot, and then you have a recall vote on election day. And so you might have a referendum question, should we have marijuana, and should we get rid of our current governor? And if you get rid of them, often they have choices for an alternative one. So you're recalling them back to the people. Initiative and referendum, and initiative and recall. Okay, we only got a couple more things. Keep in mind that I want you to be thinking of your essay. So if we're talking presidential elections, we have a series of caucuses and primaries. Now, you know those words. Starting in January, actually there are a couple in December, but we'll get to those later. In January up until June, the people vote for delegates in those caucuses and primaries, those delegates then go to the National Convention in August or September, and they will vote for the candidate for their party for president. In effect, though, what really happens is the people are essentially selecting the candidate. They don't have, even though these primaries and caucuses go through June, generally we know the candidate in April. And the reason is it costs, as I told you before, $500 million per candidate if they want to become president, not including the PAC money. This is what they raise alone. So by 2016 January, the Democrat and the Republicans who really want a chance to become president of the United States will have raised in excess of $100 million. So we're talking a year from now, they will have raised in excess of $100 million. Figure out that per day, several $million a day. So what has happened is that we've pushed it backwards, meaning if you look there, RFK didn't even decide to run until March 1968. However, we knew John Kerry in 2004 in April, and we knew that Barack Obama statistically couldn't lose also by April 2008. So we will, in a year and a quarter, know who the Republican and Democratic candidates are, simply because the losing candidates will not have enough money to literally fly or drive to the next destination, because people will stop giving to them because they see them as a loser. So what happens is states are trying to move their primaries and caucuses backwards, front-loading it's called, so that their state's vote has more relevance. I assume you're going to have questions on this. We will start on Tuesday with the questions. Identifying now the steps that candidates have to take. One, they're doing this now. Believe it or not, Hillary Clinton is already putting her staff together. Chris Christie is doing it. We now know Jim Webb, who's running as a Democrat, is putting his staff together. It's hard to get the top level people unless you think you have a shot. And so it takes a lot of cajoling, offering them good enough money and jobs and everything. And that's the first straw poll, if you will. The second one is in Iowa this August, when people literally will bus in people, voters, they're paying them, they're giving dinner, they will put big Hollywood movie stars and rock stars there so they can hobnob with them, and they're going to do a straw poll. This is an unscientific poll, and from that, few people will drop out. Why? Because it will show that they can't raise enough money, they can't organize well in Iowa. And there's a lot of, the reason Iowa is because that's the first caucus state. And then the first primary state is New Hampshire. And there are a lot of people who don't like that, because if you think about it, it doesn't reflect America. It's rural and it's white, and that's it. As opposed to what the Democrats have done, their third and fourth states are Nevada and South Carolina, which are much more diverse states. The Republicans and Democrats don't have to have their dates all the same lined up. So what you start doing is in those two things, late January for the caucus, early February for the primary. But what's going to happen in early March is you're going to get states that are going to run 4, 5, 6 states on the same day. They're different dates. Yankee primary, Super Tuesday, you don't have to know the dates. Just know that all of a sudden candidates have to be in 5 states at once. Epitome was John Edwards, a candidate who ran a while ago, fell asleep in an interview because he was so tired because he was getting 2 or 3 hours a night of sleep. It's almost impossible to run for president. So what happens is This all leads to August, to the party convention, where I've already mentioned to you, the Republicans have only delegates, the Democrats have delegates plus